Hey guys, CJ here. I'm just making a video to talk about the latest update, which is obviously an update that's been people have been waiting for such a long time. It's the addition of the competitive mode, the matchmaking mode in TF2. After what 9 years of the game being out, finally there is an official matchmaking. It's out of beta and it's good to go. And as you can see, there's also this war going on between Heavy and Pyro. It's called Meet Your Match is the is the name of the update, but you know, Heavy versus Pyro War update is also something that people have been calling it. So I thought I'd just run through and take a look at all the changes and the additions and things like that, to have a look and, you know, kind of see what's good, what do I feel is good, what do I feel is bad, and obviously get the feedback from you guys in the comments. What do you think whether the changes, the additions, the nerfs and things like that are good or bad, and maybe get a bit of a discussion going, because I'm always interested to hear what people think. But obviously the main thing is, well, the two main things are the addition of the 6v6 mode and the Pyro versus Heavy war. So this is the update page. So it says make Heavy or Pyro great again. So basically you can choose between Team Heavy or Team Pyro. Okay, and whichever one you choose, when you play in your game, the points you score contributes to that team. So if you pick Team Heavy and you go in and play in a game and you get like 100 points, those 100 points go to Team Heavy. For those of you who've been around a long ass time like me, will remember the Soldier versus Demo war. Soldier versus Demoman, which was a long time ago, and that was an interesting war, because it was to decide which class was going to get the gunboats. You know, they were shown this item saying these are the gunboats, they reduce your explosive self-damage, it makes it easier to do your jumps, and they said whichever team wins, you know, and that was Soldier killing Demo killing Soldier, you know, whichever one of those got the highest number would get the gunboats added. And obviously, you know, the Soldier won, the Soldier got the gunboats, and the rest is history. You know, I've always wondered, if the Demoman had won, how would the competitive meta have changed if Soldier didn't have gunboats and Demoman did. But maybe that's an idea maybe for another video. So yeah, we obviously had the Soldier versus Demo, and then we've also had the Spy and the Sniper update, which was slightly later on, and that added a whole bunch of things to Spy and Sniper, and also the addition of Payload Race in that update as well. So now we've got Pyro versus Heavy versus Pyro, and the idea is the team that wins is going to get their rebalancing update first. So from what I understand, Valve has rebalances, you know, and stuff like that ready for both classes, but whichever team wins is going to have their class, you know, done first. You know, it's going to be sorted out first, because a lot of people argue that Heavy and Pyro are the weakest classes in TF2 for various reasons. I mean, Heavy has been nerfed quite a lot over the past you know, couple of years, but that's something else. So it'll be interesting to see who wins. I'm still undecided on which one I'm going to go for. We can take a look at the new taunts. So there's some new taunts. We've got the Ballooner Bouncer. So obviously the Pyro riding a Balloonicorn, which looks pretty awesome. We've got the Carlton, which is one for the Scout, which is pretty awesome. I believe this is the only one that was added by Valve. Yeah, it says created by Valve. The rest of them were all community created, which is really nice that they're adding more community stuff into the game. We've got Disco Fever, which looks pretty awesome. So these are all new taunts that I'm going to have to add to my collection, find some space, make some space. And then the Fubar Fanfare. This is interesting. Like, you've got the Sniper with his saxophone. You've got like a trombone now for the Soldier. Like, how many other classes are going to get? You can make like an entire band or something. What's in the box? You've got starter class packs, which is really interesting, because it basically adds, it says we put every functionally unique weapon for each class. So if you're interested in starting and you don't have the weapons, then, you know, hopefully they're cheap on the market, and then that's a nice little starter pack to get going. So yeah, Obviously I don't need that because I have every item anyway, but for new players, if people coming back to the game and like, oh, I don't have all of the weapons, that's something for them to pick up if they wanted to get, jump into the competitive mode. Then we've got keyless class crates. Feeling lucky, buy a keyless class crate and get a random cosmetic item for that class, which is interesting. I'd be again interested to see how much they cost. Keyless crates, that's similar to the Halloween crates we had not last year, the year before, where they had one per class and you didn't have to buy the keys, you just bought the crate from the store. So yeah, random cosmetic item is I suppose, if that's what you're going for. I do wonder if they include unusuals. That's something we'll have to look into, whether there's a chance of getting an unusual cosmetic out of those crates, or if it's just a regular. And then we've got the perfect strange crate. I believe this crate is listed as crate number 103. So once again, like when I heard about all of them adding new crates and stuff like that, part of me was hopeful that they'll be finally adding, what is it, crates number 70, 80 and 90. Because we had the salvaged crates at 30, 40, 50, 60, and then obviously there was so much hype for 70, 80, 90, and they never came out. So there is a gap in my crate collection, but there's also, for sequencing it's a bit odd. But basically this says the TF2 community has been asking for strange versions of these weapons, and we're shipping them all in one conventional crate, also throwing in assortment of strange parts. Now I've actually got the crate up here on the store, like it says crate 103, and it's got the Iron Bomber, the Panic Attack, the Backscatter, Quickie Bomb Launcher, which I do believe are all new ones. And then we've got the Ambassador, which already has a strange, as does the Reserve Shooter, the Degreaser, the Power Jack, the Natasha. The Sandwich doesn't. Obviously we've got strange festive ones, but we haven't got a regular sandwich, so now that's available. But the Degreaser in particular is the one that jumped out to me, because the Degreaser is one of those, it's a really popular primary for the Pyro. For a long time it was undoubtedly the best primary for Pyro, and a lot of people still use it, and it has been very expensive, so that is certainly going to decrease the price of degreasers. So if you're interested in getting a degreaser and you've never had the keys, you've never had the refined whatever, now's probably the time to jump into the market and have a look, because the market is going to be flooded with them as people start opening this crate. And the same goes for damage dealt and allied healing done. Damage dealt and critical kills are very expensive because they're quite old ones and they're quite popular ones, especially damage dealt on the market. That will cost you £10 or more usually. Allied healing done is slightly newer. I'm not sure how expensive that one was, but it's not a cheap one. But definitely damaged out and critical kills. So again, if you've been wanting to buy some strange parts, now is the time to get those ones, because they're going to be entering the market in large numbers, and that's going to force the price down on the Steam market. And then we've got Pyros and Heavies Guild, which I suppose fits in with the theme. So we'll go back to this, and we've got clear things up with a view model mini mode, as you can see here. That's what the default looks like, and then we mouse over and you can see how it looks slightly different, which is interesting. I mean, personally I have my view models turned off on all of the weapons that I feel it distracts me from on the screen, and my view model is quite outstretched because of my POV. But I bet that would help. I might toggle that and have a look and see. You can see there is a notable difference, and you can actually see more of the screen. If you see that, if there's someone really in the corner there, you're not going to see them. Now you can. And before you buy, you can mouse over and have a look at the items in crates and stuff like that, so you know what you're going to be getting, which is always cool. And then some added for was it Disgaea? Is that how you pronounce it? Don't know, but cosmetic items. And then we've got the update notes, which is always good because there's been lots of rebalancing, lots of changes in the game for certain. For a lot of things. So I'll just go through it and we'll talk about it. So rework the main menu. So this is something that's pretty big with regards to how games are found, is that there's no longer a pub mode anymore. Now you can jump into game in casual mode, and when you play a game, you're entered into a game with a certain number of people, and then you have to play that game to completion, and then you get experience points, and then you level up, and then you're matched against people of a similar level, etc., etc. Now that sounds interesting if that was a separate mode. Instead, it seems it's replaced pubbing. It's taken away the quick play mode. Now, for someone, I personally don't play a lot of pubs. My TF2 time is spent playing with friends or playing competitive and stuff like that, playing pickups, playing lobbies, stuff like that. You know, and when I'm scrimming, you know, beforehand, if I'm scrimming or something like that with my teams, I might jump into a game for 5 minutes just to warm myself up. Or if I've got to go work in 10 minutes, I think, oh, 5 minutes, just jump onto a server, get a few kills, and then I can go to work. But the way that this works is that's not possible anymore. You have to queue, you have to find a server, and then you're entered into a game, and the game can last quite a long time. And if you leave early, you get that punishment. Which, you know, like I said, if it was a separate mode, I think, you know, it'd be really cool. It seems very much like, and I'm going to use the dreaded word that a lot of people aren't going to want to hear, it sounds like Overwatch. You know, Overwatch is a game which doesn't have a pub mode. It has a casual mode where you jump in, you play the game, and then at the end of the game, you know, you get experience based on how well you've done. And then they obviously have the competitive mode, and that's the same as now in TF2. But that was one of my biggest criticisms of Overwatch. You can't jump in and have a quick 5-minute game. You're committed to that game until it, you know, enters completion, and you're always under that pressure. You know, you can't jump into a server and say, oh, you know, I'm just going to mess about, I'm just going to practice my sniping, or, you know, I'm going to play on a silly loadout or something like that, because then you're letting your team down, aren't you? And that's not going to make it fun for everyone, you know, in the server. And there's kind of that added pressure, you know, especially if you're a competitive person. There's that added pressure. Well, you know, you're in this game, people are counting on you, you have to win now. And I don't know, I just think there's been a lot of complaints on a lot of forums and things like that, so it'd be interesting to see how Valve reacts to this. I do hope they re-add the pub game mode and they have casual as a separate entity, so that you'd have, you know, you'd have pub, you'd have casual, you'd have competitive, you'd have MVM, and then those are all your different game modes. But you know, if they've taken all these Valve servers down, is there a reason why they've done that? Are they using it for something else? I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. But let's move on. Enemies killed by energy weapons have to play a special sound. That's pretty cool. New promo items, medals, blah blah blah. Added check to prevent players with P-Rec loaded from participating in matchmaking. Prevents P-Rec casting, which results in players receiving. So, which is really good, because P-Rec, if anyone doesn't know what P-Rec is, it's something that a lot of competitive players use to record their demos whenever they're playing in a competitive match. Before, in the beta, it would cause matchmaking to crash. Now it doesn't, so you can have P-Rec, you can record your demos in matchmaking, and you can use those demos for, you know, your frag movies or whatever you want to use them for. And it's an update for the demo support feature as well, which is basically like what P-Rec was. So, you know, if you want to use that instead rather than installing a custom thing, which is pretty good. Updated models materials for the Bonk Boy, Doctors, Dapper Topper, Soul Survivor, and the Dark Full Cock Ham. Now, I don't know what that means. Part of me doesn't know what that means. Is the Bonk Boy now all class? Because I've got a Sunbeams Bonk Boy, and if that is now all class, I'm going to flip my shit, you know, I'm going to be excited. I've heard a lot of rumours about the Dapper Topper becoming all class, a lot of people trying to, you know, collect all the unusual ones and stuff like that. But if the Bonk Boy is as well, that would be pretty badass. But again, I don't know exactly what that means. Sometimes it's just changing something, whether it conflicts with other stuff. So we'll have to wait and see. But maybe I'll make a new video about that in the future, because that is surely going to bump the price up of that if it is true. Pastime update. I'm sorry, I'm not really a pastime person. It's no longer in beta. You got new items, but you know, lots of changes. Pastime never really tickled my fancy, I'm afraid. So we're going to go down to bug fixes. Nothing here really that fixed the case where players with some that was helpful, because sometimes you see a player and they had like an equalizer sticking out of their head, a shotgun coming out their ear, and they're holding the rocket launcher, and you're kind of like, which gun are they using, you know? So that's good. So basically lots of different bugs and stuff. Nothing here that really stands out too much for me. Fixed air blasts, something's sending reflect, you know, that was interesting, but again, that's something that is so mechanically based. It'd be interesting to see if it's fully fixed or not. Performance, TF2 and performance, forehead. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see whether performance is improved or not. But yeah, and then there's stuff to do with custom HUDs. I do believe if anyone uses my HUD, C-HUD, probably broken. It's probably broken with this update. So I will, you know, I'm talking to Viewmodel to very kindly updates my HUD for me, and he's going to get on it as soon as he can. He does have other HUDs to update as well, but he'll try his best, I'm sure. So please be patient. You know, as soon as it's ready, it'll be ready. But yeah. So for the time being, expect there to be a lot of glitches. Manco store, so we've got the stuff being added. Obviously the competitive matchmaking pass. As far as I'm aware, the competitive matchmaking, you can play for free as long as you have a mobile phone associated with your Steam account. I don't think that means it has to be a smartphone to do with the Steam authenticator thingy. I think it just has to be any phone number. Don't quote me on that, I don't know. But as far as I'm aware, as long as you have a phone number associated with your Steam account, you can have a competitive matchmaking pass for free. You're allowed to play, you know, matchmaking. If you don't, you can buy it from the store. I think it's $9.99, something like that. And then you're allowed to play competitive indefinitely. I think that's good, because then for majority of people it's going to be free. If you want to play it and you're going to invest the time, you can just, you know, a tenner, bosh, there you go, now you can play competitive. It also means if there are any hackers out there and they get VAC banned, because, you know, if you're a hacker, you're shameful, get out. If they get VAC banned, then it's going to cost them 10 quid to get into matchmaking again. So, you know, at least Valve's going to be milking money from the hackers that way. Some changes to the maps. Most interesting one I found, you know, all of these are slight changes, but the most interesting one, especially in a competitive sense, you know, when you look at 6v6, final cap point on Badlands has been increased to 2 seconds from 1 second cap time, which means it's going to be very difficult now for people to do those quick back caps and rushing in, which is something that happens on Badlands quite a lot. You know, send 2 scouts in lower right, soldier jump onto the point, deck those stickies, scouts go in, boom, you know, it's done in less than a second. So we'll have to see how that changes, whether that's going to be changing anything good. So game balance, this is the main thing. I've been chatting for a long time now, and I'm really sorry. But I do want to talk about the changes. So we've got game balance. So obviously a lot of changes for each class. Some bigger than others. So we'll look at the Scout, the Criticola. Now the Criticola is broken in my mind. It's too powerful, and you can see that by the fact that sometimes you go into matchmaking and there's like 4 Scouts running the Criticola. You know, really strong. And they've changed it. They've added mark for death debuff for 2 seconds after the buff effect expires. So that means you drink your drink, you take more damage, but you do mini crits. And once that's worn off, you're marked for death for 2 seconds, which means you take a mini crits. Okay? I don't think that balances out enough, because obviously Criticola affects speed as well. You could drink it, zoom in, meat shot something, mini crits, run away, you're marked for death, expires in 2 seconds. I don't know whether that really balances out or not, but it's nerfed it for sure. So it will be interesting to see how prevalent that's going to be in matchmaking. Soda Popper added on hit build hype, removed build hype by running around. So no longer can you build hype and to get your jumps by running around. You actually have to hit people with your Soda Popper, which definitely nerfs it, and a lot of people complained about it being overpowered. I don't think it is. There's very rarely I've ever played against a Scout where I think, oh man, he's using the Soda Popper, he's unstoppable. But definitely nerfed, and yeah, I think it's UGC. Definitely the NA scene aren't fans of the Soda Popper, so maybe that'll be a change for them to enjoy. Now shortstop, this is a huge change. Added an alt fire attack, reach out and shove someone, essentially giving the Scout an air blast, which doesn't cost any ammo. You don't get the healing bonus, and it's reduced the pushback vulnerability. So that shortstop's got a big buff. I hate playing against shortstop scouts. Part of me is worried that I'm going to see a lot of shortstop scouts now, and they're just going to be running around kind of air blasting people. But we'll have to see. I don't think anything's ever going to beat the scattergun for absolute, effectiveness. But we'll have to see if there's any interesting strategies people come up with the short stop. Stun on stick, you take less damage from fire, which is fine. Now, soldier, Righteous Bison. Now, for any of you who regularly watch my channel, or regularly watch my stream at least, you'll know that I love to play soldier using the Righteous Bison on MVM. It does a lot of damage. It's really effective with all those robots. You can shoot all the way through them. And it says here, fixed a bug causing players to be hit by the same projectile multiple times, causing the damage dealt to vary wildly. Now, excuse me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's a tip on the page when you're loading into a server on TF2 that says, use the Righteous Bison when someone's running away because you're doing more damage to them. I didn't realise that was considered a bug. I thought that was the entire idea of the Bison, that if someone's using the Bison and they're running away, you go pew, and the projectile's going to hit them more as you're running away. So they've changed the damage for it. Point blank now deals 54 damage, whereas before it varied. They've also slowed the projectile, and the projectile damage is reduced by 25% for each enemy to penetrate it. So if it goes through one player, the next player is going to take 25% less damage. If it goes through two players and it's going to hit a third player, that third player is going to take half the damage that the initial player took. I don't really understand why they've done that. I never felt the Bison was an overpowered weapon. It was fun to play with in MVM. It was kind of fun to play with in pubs if you used it correctly, but it was never something you played against and you thought, oh no, the Bison's too strong, they need to stop this and stop that. Not a fan of that, but we'll have to see how obvious the change is when you're actually using the weapon. But like I said, I don't think the Bison needed changing. I thought it was a nice little niche weapon for certain scenarios, and yeah, not a fan of that, but we'll move on. We'll go to disciplinary action. The speed bonus is only 2 seconds instead of 3, which is going to obviously mean for those of you playing Highlander and you want your team to be rolling out faster, you need to whip your teammates more often because they're not going to have enough as much speed time. And some updated models for the rocket jumper. So on to the sniper. Now the cozy camper, which obviously before meant you didn't stutter, so if you're trying to snipe and someone shoots you with their minigun from a distance, your aim would be like, now with the cozy camper you never had that stutter, but it requires a full charge, which is quite interesting. It was used a lot in UGC NA from what I've seen, not so much in European Highlander, but in North American Highlander I see the cozy camper being quite popular, I suppose. So it'd be interesting to see if that changes their meta somewhat. Sydney Sleeper, the Sydney Sleeper now does Jurati in a radius, so anyone who's close to the person you've hit will now get covered in Jurati as well, which is a big nice buff for it. So we'll have to see if more people are using the Sydney Sleeper, and you're going to end up with entire groups of people covered in P. Cleaner's Carbine has had a little bit of a change as well, nothing too major. Natasha and Brass Beast, this is quite interesting. The 20% damage resistance that you had before only applies now when you're spun up and below 50% health, which is a massive nerf to both of those. I thought the damage resistance was the only reason now people would use the Brass Beast or the Natasha, but instead they've taken that away. They've done it so that you can only have that damage resistance when you're less than half health and when you're spun up, which I think is maybe adds a little bit of thinking if you're running those weapons, but in that instance you have no reason to run that weapon. It's not a benefit anymore. I think it's made them, not very viable. Hulong Heater, it now does less damage. You do more damage to burning players, so if you want to work together with your Pyro, work something out. And the ammo drain is only 4 per second now rather than 6. So you're going to drain less ammo when you've got that ring of fire going on. So you've got to change the buffalo steak sandwich with a little fix there. Now Spy, this is a huge one. Max speed increased to 320 from 300, which now means, from what I understand, the Spy can now walk at the same speed as a medic. So that means if you're running away from a Spy as a medic, he is running at the same speed as you, so you can't outspeed him anymore. So if he's trying to chase you for a backstab, you know, you better watch out. So that's pretty good for a spy. I think that helps maneuverability, and it also helps him get away from situations. When you couple that with things like the Deadringer, which gives you that speed boost, definitely it's going to be a big buff to spy. So it's good for spy. I'm glad there weren't too many changes to spy. There's been a lot of changes recently that I'm not a fan of, but increasing their speed, yeah, I suppose that's a nice little addition. Pyro, obviously a lot of people talking about Pyro getting this balance change if they win the war. Now flamethrowers, every flamethrower, direct damage reduces medigun healing and resists shield effects by 25%. So what that means is, if you're doing damage to a player, so say you are damaging, you're setting fire to a heavy, you're like burning the heavy, and there's a medic healing that heavy, the amount of healing that that medic can do to that heavy is reduced while he's being attacked, which is an interesting concept. It reduces medigun healing, so looking at it from my point of view as playing as a medic, maybe it would be a good idea to switch to your crossbow and get that burst healing in that sort of situation. But yeah, an interesting change to Pyro. Maybe not too huge, but interesting change. Removed a hidden fire rate penalty for the Man Melter. I love using the Man Melter. It's always fun to extinguish your teammates and then use those crits. Some medic. Now, again, like I said, I'm a medic main. Big changes here. Base. Everything. All mediguns allow the medic to match the speed of their heal target. This is previously only available on the quick fix. Now that was something on the quick fix that was always very fun. You could heal a scout and you could zoom around. I do believe that doesn't mean that if you're healing a soldier or a demo, you launch forward. If it does, then that is huge and you've made the quick fix totally pointless. But if it's only matching the speed, then it means you can roll out with a scout much faster, which is an interesting change. Quick fix Uber rate reduced to plus 15% from plus 25, so it's still faster than the average medigun, but it does mean it's less likely, you know, especially in a Highland situation, you die at mid, the enemy medic's got Uber, it does mean it's more unlikely now that you're going to be able to get a quick fix charge in time for a last hold. And I do think, you know, that is in response to the fact that the quick fix was used a lot in matchmaking, because of that mobility allowed with the with, you know, following your Demoman or your soldier flying through the air, and getting those charges, pumping out those charges really quickly. I'm not a fan of the change, but I do understand why it's happened, and I think maybe for the sake of matchmaking, it's been a necessary change. Overdose has now increased movement speed, so it's now 20% instead of 10%. I never really use the Overdose too much, but I know some medics that do, to try and get out of those situations when they've got charge. So that's an interesting change. Drop miniguns. This is another interesting thing, especially with relation to matchmaking. Picking up your minigun in a competitive league, in ESEA, ETF2L, UGC, whatever league you play in, excuse me, picking up your dropped minigun was illegal. You are no longer allowed, you know, if you dropped Uber and you went up to your medigun, you picked it up again to get that Uber when you respawned, that's illegal. That would forfeit the match for you. But it says here, stored Uber charge begins to decay over time after coming to rest. Which means by the time you come back to your medigun after respawning, it's not going to have 100%, it's not going to have... So from that change alone, it seems to me that Valve are not going to remove, you know, not having Uber charge in mediguns, and if that's still in matchmaking, then, you know, obviously you don't have rules in matchmaking. You know, they don't say you can't pick up mediguns, but that is a definite nerf to that ability. So hopefully that makes things a little bit more balanced with regards to medics in matchmaking. Looking at Demoman, if you want the speed boost on the boots, you now need to have a shield equipped, which makes sense to me. Iron Bomber, decrease diffuse time now, so it explodes much quicker after you shooting. Now the Quickie Bomb Launcher is an interesting weapon. I haven't used it very much, but a lot of top tier demo men have said, you know, the fact that it's allowed in 6v6 and ETF2L, that it's overpowered, the fact you can clear those stickies off of capture points and you know, really pump out that damage really quickly. It says it's increased the charge time reduction from minus 70%. Increased damage bonus to 35 from 25, but the clip size has been reduced, so it's now minus 50% instead of minus 25. And it's removed sticky bombs fizzle 4 seconds after landing, which means you can now place traps over them, I believe. Not sure, but that's what I understand. So that definitely looks like it's a change to the Quickie Bomb Launcher, possibly a buff. So I'll be interested to see if Demoman continue to use that or not. Changed some materials on the sticky jumper. The Quickie Bomb Launcher is a very interesting thing now. Now Engineer, I'd never thought I'd hear myself saying this, but the Engineer changes are very, very interesting. Level 1 teleporters now cost 50 metal, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool, because now that means you can place a sentry and you can place a teleporter with your base 200 metal. Obviously you have 200 metal as an Engineer. That's the maximum you can carry, and you can now build a teleporter at the same time. You can actually build an entrance, an exit and a dispenser before you need to pick up any metal, so that's really going to improve Engineer's build time. Widowmaker, you get 10% damage increase when you're attacking the same target as your sentry. So if someone comes into your sentry shooting them, and use your Widowmaker now does 10% more damage. It's really interesting. Eureka effect, trash tier weapon, but now it's reduced 50 less metal from dispensers and pickups to now just 20%. And added teleporters cost 50% less metal, so seeing as they now cost 50, it only costs 25. So whether that will make people use it again or not, I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see. But they're obviously trying to buff the Eureka effect if they notice not many people are using it. Short circuit, changing the fact that now it costs 10 metal to use your attack, and then it's an extra 5 metal for every projectile that you destroy. It says sometimes a buff, sometimes a nerf. And then finally the Pompton. Fixed an exploit with shooting through your own buildings. Now this is the reason that the weapon is banned in ETF2L. It was allowed for a season until the admins realized that there was a bug. And the bug is that if you shoot a Pompton through a dispenser or a building on your team, the projectile will go through the building, or even a teammate. It actually works on teammates. Now it says buildings in the patch notes. Does that include teammates? We'll have to wait and see. But if you shot through your own building or your own teammate, the projectile, once it's gone through those, is invisible. So if you're on the enemy team and as an engineer over there shooting a Pompton through his sentry, you will not see the projectile coming towards you. Invisible projectiles is not something you want in a game. So if that's been fully fixed, it'd be interesting to see if competitive leagues start allowing it in Highlander again. Damage has been increased to 72 when you're up close, but it's reduced, so which is pretty good. It makes it, you know, the fact that you're, you know, it's more viable in a 1v1 situation now if you're up close, but also it means you're, you know, if you're spamming it from a distance, it's not going to do as much damage. And it's also changed the impact sound. So that is the those are all the update notes, and that's what I think about the update notes, I guess. I haven't actually tried the game yet. I haven't decided on heavy or pyro. I haven't picked my team, and I haven't seen how all of these changes come into effect in the game. But those are my thoughts on the patch notes. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to playing casual mode. Hopefully they add in, you know, default quick play pubs, and obviously I'm interested in trying to rank up in competitive mode. But in general, those are my thoughts on the balancing changes. I'd love to hear from you guys. This video went on for much longer than I thought it would go on for, and I know it's literally just been me looking at the patch notes and talking about them, but I do like to talk about updates. I normally do this on my stream with people in the chat, but I thought for once, you guys on YouTube don't always, you know, you're not always able to watch me on my stream, so I thought I'd do it for you guys. So let me know in the comments what you think. Let's get some discussion going. What changes do you think are good? Which changes do you think are bad? What changes do you think are going to be coming up for Heavy and Pyro? Which one of those is going to win the war, and how do you think they're going to be balanced around? But thank you for watching, guys. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.